This is the next tutorial we're going to be doing the mesh and the attachment round for the Barenaked shoulders top, the Stonepoint & Jones Barenaked shoulders top. So here's a very colorful, ugly prototype that we're working with to show you each piece on how it's done. Let's do a quick recap so you know where you're at. This is the front, and as you can see, the back is higher. It's because we're going to be adding the mesh up here. So what we've done is we've done the front. We started here. We've done the front. This is all in one piece. There's no sewing. We've done the underarm around the back. Here's the back. And then we've joined the sides as we go and continued on and done the trim on both the front and the back. This is the back, and then the front. The trim is orange. As you can see, we just joined down the side and then continued along. So this is all one piece. If you use the big things of yarn, you probably didn't even have to cut your yarn until this very end right here. So that's where we're at, and we're going to begin here. Now we have these markers, and I made a note for you guys to pay attention. At the end of each vertical row, every other vertical row, there's a chain 2, the turning chains. In between there's a half double crochet. Remember, and we're going to work in just like we did in the trim, where we worked in every other row in the chain 2 space and made these arches. We're going to carry on and do the same up here. It's a real pretty way of trimming it, and it gives it a lot of stretch, and it lays just perfectly. So we mark the middle and where we started to taper for the armholes, and we marked those so that we would know where to go. Now, under the mesh and chest plateau, we're going to do the small, medium, and large. You can't see that here very well, but it says that there you will create 12 arches for the small and medium and 13 arches for the large. And let me explain what I mean by arches. Okay, we mark the center. And so if we're going to do a smaller medium, we mark the center, and we need to identify these arches. And they're the chain 2 spaces. Now they're easy to see on mine, but it's going to take a little work for you. And I marked the center for that reason. So say it's a medium and you've got to do 12. So that means you need to find the six arches. Here, let me fold this down. It means you need to find 6 arches on each side of your marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You need to find 6 of them. And on the large, the marker would be here, would be on an arch, on a chain 2 at the end of a row. And you would go, since there's 13, you would go 6 on each side. So this would make the 13th. So we're going to be doing the small and medium. So we're going to go 6 on each. We're going to go 6 on each side of the marker, but it's going to include each one of these. Like I said, how it would turn out for your center on the large, your center would end up being right on one of these arches, and you would go 6 on each side, giving you 13 total. And this matters because we have to end up at the same amount as we taper the mesh. And I'm going to do that in red, so it'll be referred to and there'll be a layout chart. So this is where we started, and the only ends we'll have, we don't want to have very many ends at the top. That's why any changes in yarn or additions to yarn were at the hem, and they're easily covered in these 3 single crochet arches. So we're gonna want to cover things as we go. I found that that's the easiest. So this one is a smaller medium, so we're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to find 6 on each side. 1, 2, and it's easy on this one because it's really big, but on yours it might not be. We're looking at these chain 2 spaces, not the double crochets in the middle. And once you get over here, it's a little funky, so just eyeball it, but we want a lot of coverage along the chest. So what we're going to do is easy enough. We've gone our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've gone our 6, and we're going to attach the yarn in a simple manner, but we want it secure because I wash my stuff all the time. Put these in a bag, wash them according to your yarn instructions, and you're going to be really happy with it. So I just do we need to keep this kind of flat and not bulky, so just do a double knot right here in this chain 2 space right here. I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter. And like I said, I hate weaving in ends, but this is going nowhere. So even if a little end pops out here, you could snip that off and you would still be safe because this is going nowhere. So I'm going to pull up a loop. I'm going to chain 1, and we're going to count that as 1 single crochet, and we're going to put 3 single crochets in every single chain 2 space of the ends of the vertical row. And remember, our ends of the vertical row, we either end the vertical row in a half double crochet or a chain 2, which is our turning chain. And remember, 3 stitches is an inch. So basically we're putting in 3 stitches every 2 rows, which means every arch is an inch, if that helps you. But that'll just help you know that you're on the right track, and you won't have these differences in colors to see. So you're going to have this middle marker and go from the middle outside. Okay, so there's 1 single crochet, 2, and 3, and I'm just going to go ahead and crochet over this. All right. So I'm going to pause this and get a close-up view of what we're doing. I'll be right back. Okay, you should be able to see better. This is where we attached our yarn, and I'm crocheting over my tail. We did a double knot, and we need 3 spaces here, so you might have to, we need 3 stitches to work in. So if you don't want to mess with trying to work in this, which is kind of hard because it's turned, put another single crochet in there just so you have 3 single crochets to work in. So I'm going to put another one in there so I have another one to work in. Okay, so now there's a half double crochet here. We're skipping that and we're going right to the chain 2 space. We're going to do another 3 single crochets. So every 3 single crochets into the chain 2 spaces equals an arch. So now we have 2 arches. Okay? And this is going to look messier. Yours is going to look like, let's see. Yours is going to look like this pretty thing. Here's these arches. Oops. Here's these arches that we're making right here. See these right across? That's what we're making. Okay, let's continue. Okay, and find the next chain 2 space, and we do 3 single crochets. Let me get in frame here. 3 single crochets, so we have 3 arches now. 1, 2, 3, with 3 single crochets in each one. I'm going to continue across and make sure you need to have 12 for a small or a medium and 13 for the large. 13 of these 3 single crochet arches. Okay, and I'm going to keep going. 1, 2, 3, and make sure you've got to have, look at the top of these, you've got to have 3 stitches to work in at the top of every one. So if you make a mistake, pull it out. It's not very many. It's not very many stitches. What is it? 36 stitches. And go all the way across. And this is the mesh stitch, the mesh for the front, the chest plateau, the front chest plateau. So if you need 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you need to refer to your pattern, please do. This is there's pictures in the pattern, there's instructions in the pattern, but look at the videos. It makes it easier. These are not very time-consuming to make. It's just you kind of need to follow my unusual instructions blindly. This is done differently because we do it vertically, and then we do it horizontally, and then we go around. So we're going to be working in all directions. Okay, so we need to have 12 of these arches for the small or medium. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 for the large, which would mean that this would be the middle marker would be on an arch. You would have on a chain 2 space, and then you would have that chain 2 space with 6 on each side, which would be 13. So then the next row, this is row 1 of the mesh stitch. The next row we chain 2 and we single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. So I chained 2 and I turned, and the second stitch, now these are chains, these aren't stitches, so this is a stitch and this is a stitch, and this is actually the middle of this arch we just made, and we're going to single crochet into that. So we're making kind of a partial loop, a partial mesh loop here. Then we chain 2, and we're going to skip 2, and we're going to crochet. Now if you get this correct, when we skip 2, this will be in the middle stitch of each arch across. So you just need to get that first one right, okay? If you don't have an extra stitch, you should just be able to have this is going to be a partial one. And we're going to have one more loop than what we began with. So if you began with 12 arches, we're going to have 13 loops, and that's on purpose. We're going to have one extra because and so just make sure you count your loops. So it's a single crochet, chain 2, and then you single crochet into the middle stitch of the next arch, which would be skipping 2 stitches. See, 1, 2, and then crochet, single crochet in the next arch, chain 2, and single crochet in the next arch, and go all the way across, and I will meet you here. Okay, here we are. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to skip 2 and single crochet into this middle stitch, of this arch. Okay, and then I'm going to make, okay, so right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we need the 13th one, and it says to chain 1. This is kind of a partial loop, and then single crochet into the last stitch. And this is a little hard to find. And you know, if you can't find it, you know, just do the best you can, get in there or go into this one. But try really hard. It'll you're going to need it kind of a nice edge along it. So we try to make it easy, and this is hard for me too. So let's see, there we go. I'm in it. Just make sure and try and get into 2 loops and single crochet. Now we're going to begin, now that we started with 12 arches, we have 13 loops, and it will tell you in the pattern, it will tell you at the end of the row how many loops you should have each time for each row. We are now beginning row 3. Okay, and we're going to single crochet into, see this chain 1 space we just made? It's a chain 1 and it's a single crochet. We're going to turn, we're not going to chain. And here's where we're going to start decreasing by 1 loop for the mesh stitch, so that it V's up or decreases, it tapers to come to that high collar. Okay, so we're turning without chaining, and then we're going to single crochet into this loop, and then we're going to begin our mesh stitch. So we just this decrease on each side. So we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to single crochet into the next chain 2 space. Chain 2, and we're going to single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So we're just making another set of loops, but this time it will be 12 loops. And we're going to chain 2 and single crochet. So we're not going to be doing any more partial loops, but the turn is going to be, I'll show you the turn. So we chain 2 and we go to the next loop and we single crochet into the next chain 2 space. So not the stitches, the space. So we're making a mesh stitch, and mesh stitches are all different, and so this is actually going to be different than the plus size mesh. So chain 2 and single crochet into each of these chain 2 spaces all the way across, and I will meet you right here. Okay, here I am, and let me show you. See, I made these loops. Mesh is starting to look really good. These are really pretty arches. I know it's ugly in the colors I use, but I chain 2 and I'm going into this. So we're at the end of row 3, and at the end of row 3 it says to, at the end of the row, after you chain 2, you're going to single crochet into that last chain 1 space right here. Next, all the rows are the same. We turn without chaining, and we're going to go right immediately into the first loop, and we're going to single crochet, and that decreases our loops. Okay, so see how we have these mesh loops on the side? We're going to be going up those and making those look really cool too. So we're going to chain 2. This is row 4. Single crochet in the next chain 2 space, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 2 space. Okay, this is row 4. So this is row 1, row 2, 3, and 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we kind of have 4 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. So chain 2 and single crochet in each of the chain 2 spaces from the previous row, and I will meet you over here. Okay, I'm at the end of the row. See, these are vertical rows, and this is a horizontal rows on the chest mesh. And it's nice because everything stays really stretchy in this. Even though we're going horizontally, will give a lot of stretch and still some coverage on the chest. So here we're at the last loop, and we just single crochet into the last loop, and then we're going to turn without chaining, and then we're going to go right back into the chain 2 space that we just made and single crochet, and that reduces, hold on, I'll get this over, and that reduces the amount of loops. Now we continue in this pattern until we only have 8 loops left. So whether it's a small, medium, or large, the large will have 1 extra row. And to get down to 8 loops. So as we continue, we need to continue doing this pattern until we only have 8 loops left. So chain 2 and single crochet into the next loop, chain 2 and single crochet into the next loop, and it will be 7 rows for the small and medium and 8 rows for the large to get down to 8 rows or 8 loops across. So when you have only 8 loops across, then we are ready for the next step, and it will either be 7 or 8 rows depending on whether you're doing the small, medium, or large. So continue according to the pattern until you have 8 loops left. Okay, I've continued the pattern, and this is only about 3 inches high. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. It'd be really nice and stretchy. It's where you need the give because it's across your chest. So I only have 8 loops left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 loops left. And then when you have that, you begin the attachment round. When you have 8 loops left, you're going to turn, and just like you did before, you don't chain, but we're going to put 3 single crochets. So when I refer to the mesh, I mean this. When I refer to the lattice, I mean that we add 3 single crochets to it. So we're just going to turn, and we're going to put 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, in every single chain 2 loop. 1, 2, 3. See, we're carrying this pattern throughout. This is similar to the trim on the bottom. It will be similar to the cuff on the sleeve. It'll be continued out, so it'll be everywhere. So we're down to 8 loops now. And like I said, that'll be 7 rows for, this is your first row. It'll be 7 rows for a smaller medium, and it'll be 8 rows for the large to get down to that many. And so this also makes it come up evenly with the back. Remember, the back was taller than the front. Well, this comes up pretty evenly. This is a little higher, and that's because, you know, our fronts are bigger than our backs. Okay, so here's the tricky part. Let me get this to focus. I put 3 single crochets in every one across. See, even with these ugly colors, it's pretty. And it says to move these markers up. And if you need to, I'm not doing that simply because it's easy to see with the colors I have. So, and I do want you to pay attention to these loops along the side, okay? Because we are going to be working in these spaces. See these spaces that we made? We are going to be working in those. So I'd like you to pay attention. I'd like you to notice those for when we do the armholes. for when we do the arms, okay, these spaces here that we made going up, because we are going to be working into those when we do the sleeves. Okay, so here we are. Now, this is where we attach to the back, and this is called the attachment round. So the attachment round is, whoops, I'm kind of inside out here. Let's see if I can get this in screen. Goodness. Okay, so this is the back, and this is the back neck section, and we need to pay attention to this also. I had markers, I had you put markers here, but this is going to be slightly different. Okay, we need 9. We need 9 loops here. So we can either go a little further over here to get those, because our chest, the back of our neck, the neck plateau, the back of our neck is going to be a little slightly different, but we still have to have room for our heads to go through. So I need you to find 9 loops. So here's my center. Here's my center of the back of the neck. And since we need 9, this is 1, we're going to need to go 4 on each side. And I mark this one, so this is 1, 2, and this is 3, and so we're going to need to go over here to make our 4th loop. And then over here, it's easy to see 1, 2, 3, and then this would be our fourth loop. Okay, and it's easy to see on here, but it's not going to be easy to see on yours. As long as you go the same amount either side of this center marker, you're going to be fine. Okay, so here's the front. Here's our front mesh, and that made it so the back is no longer higher than the front. Here's our front mesh, and so this part is real easy. As long as you just kind of follow along blindly. See, I marked this one. So I'm going to mark where I begin and end. So I know I need to go into this, this chain 2 space. So I'm going to pop a marker in that one too, so I know where to do 3. Remember, we put 3 single crochets and made these arches. We're going to make arches along the back too, but we need a certain amount. So that's why I marked them. Let me see if I'll mark them all for you. And you might want to mark them all just so you don't have to tear it out, because it's kind of a pain if you do. You've got to have this part done before you can do the sleeves. So basically we do the bodice, we do the bottom trim, that's all one continuous strand, and then we cut our yarn, and then we do the chest mesh and attach it, and the collar. And there's 2 different collars. There's a low collar and a high collar. The high collar is featured. Here's the low collar, and there'll be pictures of that. So I will show you the low collar on this one, and the high collar will be a separate video. But here's the low collar with the mesh, if you don't like something high up on your neck. They both look really great. They look different. So you have, this gives you your options. Okay, so I've marked every single one here. But at least mark the beginning one and the end one. I marked every single one just to show you guys what we're looking for. So this is pretty simple. We're just going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then we're going to go into the space of our first marker, and we're going to slip stitch into the space of our first marker. Okay, oops, let me see if I can get you to see that. I just slip stitched into the space, not the stitch, but the whole, see where my finger's going through the whole space. I'm going to turn it over get it turned over. And then we're going to look at it. And this is easy to see on mine, but it's not going to be so easy to see on yours. So, and then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to put 3 single crochets in this space. 3 single crochets in this space. So that way we have, look, it'll kind of start to come together now, because this is where our head is going to go through. We've got an arch here, we've got 7 chains, and then we're beginning the arches on the back of the neck. Okay, let's let it focus. And so here's our next space. And we put 3 single crochets in our next space, making our second arch. Now work 3, oh, I'm sorry, I'm moving. 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space all the way across, and I will meet you at this very last or ninth space we mark. Now this isn't quite a chain 2 space, but this is where we're going to be working. I will meet you right here. Put 3 single crochets, making 9 arches all the way across. Okay, we're at our last arch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're at our last arch. Here's where we joined the front and the back. This is going to be our armhole right here. This is going to be the top of our shoulder, and this is going to be our armhole, which those are in another video that is in your pattern. So we're going to do our last arch here, and this is just, it's simpler than it looks. It's just odd. So here's our last arch. So just like the other side, we're going to join it to the front. We're going to chain 7, and then we are going to slip stitch, to this very first stitch right here, this very first arch. So this is the arches we made across the front mesh. We're going to slip stitch right here. So we're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that makes an equal armhole, and we're going to slip stitch to the beginning stitch of this arch. Okay, so we have made a hole, a neck opening. And this is another armhole right here. Let me move this. This is our other armhole. So this would be the top of our shoulder, and this is the slanted part of the armhole. This is the flat part of the underarm. Here's your vent down here, so you can see where we're at. And so we made our entire armhole. Now, you're going to cut and tie the yarn if you're going to do a high neck, because that's going to have to be attached, reattached in another spot. But if you're doing the low neck, you're not going to cut the yarn. You're going to continue from here. And what you're going to do is you're going to start making loops, just like you did on the other one. And so slip stitch over to this, slip stitch one more to this middle stitch right here. And then chain 2. This is for the low collar again. Chain 2, and then go to, skip 2 stitches and go to this middle, the middle stitch of this arch, just like we did on the mesh. And then chain 2 and go to, skip 2 stitches, which will bring you to the middle stitch of the arch. Single crochet, chain 2, single crochet to the middle stitch, chain 2, single crochet to the middle stitch. Okay, and I'm almost there. So we're going across the front right now. Chain 2, single crochet to the middle stitch. And it's really easy to see on mine, but yours is not going to be quite as easy, so you know, pay attention so that these stack up like bricks. They don't go straight, the holes don't go straight across each other, they go this way. So chain 2 and then single crochet to the middle stitch. Now here's where, now we're at this chain opening. Now I'm doing this a little bit slightly differently. Slip stitch into here, and then I know that we're going to leave 3, we're going to skip 3 chains in the bottom but only have 2 across here. It's to give it a little stretch. We need a little stretch, and then we're going to be adding some things down here. So we're going to chain 2 and we're going to skip 3 stitches. 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip 3 and we're going to single crochet right into the middle of this. So we've got 3 single crochets on, or 3 chains on bottom, but we've got 2 chains on top, and that's to give it a little stretch. So we're going to chain 2 and then we're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to single crochet right here. Now we need to continue on with the pattern. So slip stitch to the next stitch to get to the middle. Get to the middle of this arch, this first arch of the back here. Chain 2 and single crochet to the middle stitch of the arches in the back. I've got a lot of things back here. And like I said, this is just, there'll be different instructions for the high collar. You will have cut it and you wouldn't be continuing on, but this one you will be. So chain 2, single crochet to the middle, chain 2, single crochet to the middle of the arch, chain 2, single crochet to the middle of the arch. Okay, let's look at this. See what we have here. So we have these arches, and then we're making more chain 2 spaces. And let's see, let's just get quickly over to this side. And now we're at the other top of the shoulder where we attached it. We do need to do our final single crochet there, and then slip stitch right here to match the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing again. We are going to chain 2 and we're going to skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to single crochet in the middle of this chain 7. So that took me a second. So we're going to single crochet and we're going to chain 2. So again, on the other arm, on the other top of the shoulder, we have 3 chains down here and we have 2 up here. That's to give it some stretch, 1, 2. And then we come over here and we are going to, we're going to skip 3 and we're going to slip stitch to this stitch right here, right before we get to our first loop. Okay, and then at our first, now this is all we do for the setup. The rest is almost done. We continue on to our first loop and we put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space. So 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space all the way around. And what we did was we just made chain 2 loops all the way around. That's what we just got done doing. But we left a little stretch, so this will go over our heads. Let's see here. So we have arches. We start with arches down here. We end up with arches up here. And we're going to put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space that we made all the way around. There should be no confusion. Let's look over here. See these are chain 3 spaces. This will be incorporated into the armhole and sleeve. We're just going to put 3 single crochets in every chain 2 space. See where they are all the way across. Now this is a little funky right here. Don't worry about it. Just skip right over it and put 3 single crochets in that space. And I will, let's see, I'll go with you. I'm almost to the arm, the top of the shoulder. So the top of the shoulder, see there's a stitch here, just skip right over it and put 3 single crochets there. And that's just, it gives it a little bit of it gives it a little more stretch, just going across here. And these are kind of big loops like this. They're supposed to do that. I mean, mine are obviously bigger and gappier because I'm using a bigger hook. But there is a lot of stretch here, so it'll fit over your head pretty well. And remember that we're just kind of ignoring the stitches in here and going straight over to the 3 single crochets in every loop, in every chain 2 loop. So that shouldn't be confusing at all. We are not going to slip stitch. I try to edge everything I possibly can with a slip stitch, but this we don't want to because a slip stitch will make it too tight. And I'll show you how this looks. I'm just getting over to where we started, and I'll show you how this looks. And we cut and tie it right here. We're done with this section completely. For the low collar, I told you where to cut and tie your yarn for the high collar, and so you'll be all set with that. Here we are at the other top of the shoulder. Let me let it focus. So remember, these 3 chains are down here, the 2 chains are up here. Skip over this funky part, and 3 single crochets right here in each chain 2 space. Now, just like you would in any round, because we're going in rounds, sorry, that's strange, what we have 3 single crochets here, 1, 2, 3. In this third one, slip stitch into this third one. And cut your yarn, cut and tie your yarn, and you are done with the low collar. And next you would, here's your collar, you did it, and here's your sleeves, and then the next you would go to the sleeves and you'd be finished. By now, I'll see you on the next video.